What up? What up? It is your boy Diego, the new metal messiah of Hellfire Radio. Welcome to the Asylum Inc. right here on Hellfire Radio. Join me this evening, very special guests. You see it, King Locomotive, Nashville boys. Well, actually, a little more than Nashville. We'll get into that in a little bit, but finally it's here. We got past the holidays, gentlemen. We got past the new year, into the new year. 2020 is behind us. 2021. It kind of looks the same. She just got a little different shade of lipstick on. It's not smudged yet, so she's still kind of pretty, like a beer in, and she's doing okay. How you guys feeling so far in 2021?
Good, man.
Really, really good, man.
Good. So just for anybody that doesn't know who you guys are, like just put it out there. Who is King Locomotive, and why do I love your music so damn much?
Oh, it's a big question, I feel like.
Who wants it?
Yeah, you take it.
I'll take it.
You take it.
You take it, Brian.
So King Locomotive is these guys that you're looking at. And the reason that it's so amazing is that we've had lots and lots of years of a runway getting ready for takeoff or whatever you want to call it. And so these are the three gentlemen that you're looking at. They're part of that Detroit banner. And the three of them came down to Nashville together more or less over the course of the last 10 years. And they've really created a lot of room to make music. And one of the first things that Jake said to me when I met him in 2015 was there's room for everybody. And King Locomotive is this ongoing conglomerate and collective of an attempt to make the next thing even while you're doing what's going on now. And the way that we relate to each other is an attempt to make music that we would love to listen to, and also music that we would really, really be honored to make. And while we're writing and recording together, as we were earlier tonight, literally an hour ago, is we're trying to make stuff that we would love to hear if somebody showed it to us, but also stuff that we're very proud to show to other people.
Hell yeah. Yeah, that's like
good answer.
Yeah, that's a hell of an answer.
That's why he's a singer, man.
So I seen you guys at Bowie's about a month or so ago. And just shameless plug real quick. Catch me pretty much every Tuesday night, sometimes a Wednesday night, soon on a Friday night at Bowie's downtown Nashville and 3rd and Church. Then Roxy Nashville presents it's live music, man. We're doing it while we can and where we can, when we can. And you guys were out there, and it like blew me away. Like that night in particular was kind of the night that I every week I go in there and I always have my sights set on one band or what band I think I may kind of gravitate to, and I always come out different. Like every time is different, and that night with you guys was the night because I had heard hearsay, right? I had heard about you guys, but we'd never met and I'd never heard you live, and you guys plugged in, and I was like, what do you mean we're done? Like that's not the show's not over. 6 more songs. So it's like anybody that's not caught you guys live, it's definitely an experience. And speaking of live and Bowie's, coming up soon, right?
Yeah.
February 5th.
Yep. So tell us a little bit more about this show we got going on here. Of course, Beyond Here, it's their EP release show. You guys are going to be there along with a couple other bands. It's going down February 5th. As always at Bowie's, you got to be 21 and up, but I promise you the beer is always cold and the music's always loud. So it's definitely worth coming down. So besides that show, like what else touring wise, what do you got? I know a lot. All we can do is schedule and hope, right? Like we're going to do this, hope it sticks. So what is 2021 shaping up for King Locomotive?
Well, so far, we just did the studio today. So we're going in and doing a couple more tracks. Our plan is to kind of release a song with maybe some video content each month because nobody's buying records anymore and people have very short attention spans, and us included. So it's like, we just got to kind of keep pumping content. And so far as of 2021, we have the 5th, which Logan Hatcher got a hold from Beyond Here to Brandon and had us come on that. Am I right about that, Brandon?
Yep. I was actually playing at the time.
Yeah. And then we have the 7th at Bus Call at the Tin Roof downtown, and the 11th at Kimbro's. in Franklin with the Fresh Squeeze guys that played with us that played on that gig that night.
That's right.
Yeah.
That is right. Another amazing band.
Can I throw some love at those guys real quick?
Yeah.
That we played for anybody watching from home or out of town was one of the coolest and most like gelling lineups I've ever been a part of. We had Scott Eden or Scott. What the fuck is his last name?
Yeah,
I have, but he's in a band called The Garden of Eden.
Yes,
Scott,
that's right.
Scott something. I think he's Scott of Eden on Instagram, so I didn't miss the whole thing. And then it was Fresh Squeeze, then it was us, and then it was Richie Scholl. After Brandon plays in an Eagles band with, and the whole flow of the night was just so consistent and so exciting, and I think everybody kind of pulled off that for the entirety of the evening, including Scott. And like going to play with the guys from Fresh Squeeze again at Kimbrough's is something we're really looking forward to. Yeah. They had a lot of balls, man. That was awesome.
Yeah, for sure. That show overall was, that was one of the better ones. That's definitely, I'm glad I was out there that night. So really, you just join us here on the Asylum on Hellfire Radio. Have King Locomotive, and this is something I talked about before with you guys before we came on. It's the logo overall is badass, right? And we'll get into where the name comes from and the origin and all that shit. But for whatever reason, like I'm a dude that loves to travel, right? For whatever reason, I'm a junkie for big cities, other cities. I'm from California. I live in the Nashville area now. So you guys got representing Detroit, Nashville, and New York City. Kind of explain yourself out of that. Like, so where, where's that coming from? Who's owning up to what, I guess is what I'm saying.
I would say John Brandon and I, the drummer John, he's in the nice, awesome Grand Funk t-shirt. If you can't tell, he's from Detroit. Us three grew up together in Detroit, and Brandon introduced me to John, and I moved down here first, and then Brandon came down, and then John came down. And Brian, you're the NYC guy here.
I'm the New York City representative of that logo.
Okay.
And the reason that Nashville is on the in between of the three is that I met Jake first on my first night in Nashville, and he was like, "Hey man, I really got to introduce you to my guys." And then I met Brandon, then I met John, and at the time, I guess you and John were torn together.
Hi, Mom.
Yeah, his mom just logged in. That's awesome.
That's awesome. Hello, Mom. How you doing?
Detroit is awesome. Yeah. And he was just like, you're going to find a lot of, and I give it up to Jake for this, because on the first night I was in Nashville after I'd had, quite an experience myself, but he said, you're going to meet a lot of really excellent people, and there's room for everybody, but you have to meet my brothers, Brandon and John. And over the course of a pretty short period of time, we were all introduced to each other. And while we were kind of incubating, it was always a conversation of when can we make this a real thing? How can we pull this together? But it was that they were all here together in Nashville doing what they do, touring about with the other bands that they're with, and like working harder, I have to say, than anybody really I've quite ever met. And I was in New York, I played 300 nights a year up there. And as we sort of limped into 2020, the pieces came to be that it was very important for me to be around them more and us to be around each other more, because the more we were around each other, the more the things like what you heard in December were going to happen. And the easier it would be to facilitate the growth of this band, which is something we've all been really passionate about, but had, I guess, not mixed feelings, just, mixed abilities to make it happen.
Right.
Yeah, and this was, many years in the making, ever since, Brian first came down here and when we all got together. But the timing just never seemed right. And then, 2020 hit, and everybody knows all the bullshit that we had to deal with in 2020. We were like, you know what? Let's do something good in 2020. Let's get some music out to the people. Let's put this thing together. And I think it even scared us how quickly and how easily it came together.
Yeah, this baby basically August. Oh, there's my mom. Cool.
Hey, Mom. Hey, Mom.
Building.
Yeah. So where's the name come from? Like it's a unique name. It's different. It stands out for sure. Like, so where's that kind of?
Yeah, Jake, where's the name come from?
Brian, right?
This is well, it's funny how it happened is that, you know, I always refer to bands as essentially, you know, this band was like a train. I always said that. I've been saying it since the beginning, like, you know, the drummer, John's the caboose that keeps all the bottom going. And I'm like, Brandon was just kind of the navigator of the trip, and Brian is the conductor. And I was always the guy shoveling coal into the fire. And then, you came up with that.
I have a solo record, a song called "Carry Me Home," and the second verse begins. The lyric is, "Got a head of steam like a king locomotive," and Jake had been bringing all this imagery to us about the steam engine, and I was like, "Hey, y'all, what do you think about King Locomotive?" And we had a couple ideas in there that I think we all liked, and that we were kicking them around either in like a group text or at a rehearsal. And we were together in the room at our rehearsal room that we spent a lot of time in. And I said, "What, you know?" And Jake had been, you know, talking about shoveling coal and conductor and caboose and this and that. And I was like, "What about King Locomotive?" And we were all kind of like wrapping cables and putting our gear back in bags, and we said, "I think that might be it. You know, I think that's cool."
Yeah, it had to happen.
Pop's here.
Oh, hey, Dad.
And you know, the really wonderful thing, I will say from my own experience, but I hope that I'm not talking out of turn, is that we made a decision from the first day that we were in the rehearsal room that anything that happened with this band was going to be completely unanimous, or it wasn't going to happen. And that's how it's been. And it's been incredibly beautiful to work in an environment where you know that you are part of the whole, and that your voice counts completely equally, and that the decisions that are being made in the best interest of the band as a whole at all times. And so the name was exactly that, you know, like, and the King Locomotive is not any one of us. It's the whole thing kind of chugging on. And that's, John will send, you know, to our group text all the time, he'll send choo choo bitches. And
Well, it's funny too, because I think like in the beginning, I was the only one that wasn't like 100% on board with the name. And then I started to understand, you know, the imagery that could come with it. And then I saw the logo and I saw the pictures of the train, and I'm like, you know, this really is a fucking steam train just like coming right at you. I'm like, this is the perfect name.
Yeah. Like I said, this band's only been functioning in this capacity since August. You know, so very new. And we already have, you know, we're about to have 8 tracks in the can.
Yeah, we literally had to rush home from the studio today to do this interview with you.
Right, which I appreciate it. Yeah, like, cause when you guys told me, you're like, "Hey, we're recording it," I was like, "Man, we can reschedule. We can go late."
Absolutely.
No.
You want this mojo. That's how we're all going.
But I guess the thing that blows me away the most is, so you guys have only really been since August, but the buzz around town and just the buzz in Nashville and locally and abroad for King Locomotive is so much bigger. And the crowd that you guys brought that night was like, holy shit. Everybody was buzzing that, you know, and it's like, it was the entire, like, it was a big crowd, you know, and they were all there. Everybody knew who you guys were, fucking stoked to see you get up on stage. So it's like, just being around since August, I don't buy it. You know what I'm saying? But it's real. Like, it's legit. Like, it's legit.
It's one of those things where, you know, we especially Jake and I and John, we've been around town for long enough where, you know, we've kind of built a little bit of a name for ourselves, and a lot of people know us around town. So, you know, being in a country city, loving rock and roll, there's a lot of people that are curious what's going to come out of our brains and into our music.
Yeah.
And when that moment finally came where we had a first original show in, I would say 15 years, that the music that's going to come out is going to be something that we could all relate to, something that's, you know, pent up aggression for 15 years that we can't get out all of our creativity. And then all of a sudden, you know, we have a few rehearsals, we have a few recordings, and then we're showing people our stuff and people are getting excited. And it's one of those things. I wasn't even totally sure who was going to be there. And because I'm used to all these shows in Detroit where you tell all your friends about it, and then 10 people show up. And then here, you know, all these people that have been our friends for years, I guess Nashville shows up a little bit more than our hometown used to.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it goes back to what Brian was saying earlier too. You know, Nashville is for everybody, and we're so musically diverse here. But there seems to be this itch for like good original rock and roll. And, you know, as I said previously, the time, you know, it came together. It seemed to be the right time for us to finally do this project that we've been talking about for 5 years, 6 years at this point. And the response that we've gotten from people is huge. It's absolutely awesome. But people they want to hear good rock and roll, and we're here to bring it to them.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you've come to the right place. Of course, for those of you just joined us here on the Asylum Inc. on Hellfire Radio, special guest tonight, King Locomotive, Nashville, Tennessee's own. If you've not seen these guys play, do yourself a favor, and I need you to go ahead and get out to Bowie's February 5th. Doors open at 6. You guys know what time you're taking the stage yet? Never mind. It's right there. All you got to do, James, it's you guys are closing it. Are you closing it down?
Yeah, we are.
Hell yes. I'll be out there hosting the festivities. Come out, say hi, have a drink. 21 and up. The beer is always cold and the food is always good and the music is as loud as ever. Hope to see everybody out there. So to kind of jump back into the origins more of the band, and everybody's so diverse. And like you said, the whole Nashville thing, like not being from this area at all in the South, I couldn't be more further away from, you know, the South. The scene back home in California, whether I'm from Northern Cali, but you know, Southern California has the influentials of the early days, the whiskey, you know, everybody went to the Motley Crue, you know, and then after the crew leaves town, you know, so to speak, or kind of old news. And then even though they're not California boys, the Seattle boys, then Nirvana sweeps the world, and then that changes hands again. And then we all know what happened there. And then the Foo Fighters come up, and then, you know, just thing after thing. And the scene is just so diverse. And then of course it's given us what I like to call the thing that I'll never grow out of, the new metal era and the grunge era. And it's all there. But what people don't know, like you said, Nashville's for everybody. It is Music City. When you hear Nashville, the first thing you think is country, kissing sisters and crying in my beer and, you know, stuff like that. Maybe 20 years ago. And it's still predominant. You know, you still got a lot of the legends live there. You know, we all see it. We all walk down Broadway, you know, Second Avenue, not right now. You know, shout out to all the businesses on Second Avenue that's rebuilding. Still, you know, keep them in our thoughts, and Nashville will rebuild. It's a strong ass city, resilient. That's the one thing I found out about Nashville is they never say die. So that's a good thing. But like the rock scene in Nashville, like it's phenomenal. And it is the biggest group community. Like you said, Brendan, they come out. Like they come out. I know those crowds that you're talking about that you say friends and family, everybody's like, hell yeah, bro, I see you there at 8. And then next day you see them and hey, what happened? Yeah, well, you see, like it's my last day of my Xbox Live and I had to use it, you know. So you know what I'm saying? But Nashville, it's just like you walk into a bunch of strangers, so to speak, and you walk out with friends, you know what I'm saying, or acquaintances, or you know, just awesome people. And I can't praise Nashville enough for that, especially with what we're trying to do here, what I'm trying to do, you know, just bring the rock scene to the forefront again, because rock's not dead. I've heard that shit for I'm 37. I'm 37. I've heard that since I was 5 when they were like, yeah, Tom Petty, bro. Tom Petty's the last rock star. And it's like, rock's not dead, you know, rock's not dead. So this is really a good thing that we're doing here in Nashville, and you guys are a very big part of it. So influences, because you are so many different origins and come from different cities and states, and now we're all here. I'll just go around the round table. What's everybody's influences? Like, what were you listening to growing up? What made you get into music?
John, go first. You have the best one.
You want me to start?
Yeah.
So I'm obviously very biased, but I believe for a long time that Detroit was the greatest rock and roll city in the country.
Hell yeah.
And actually, 61 years ago yesterday is when Berry Gordy got a loan to open Hitsville, USA, and start a revolution called Motown. you know, that's all my favorite stuff. You know, my dad's a musician who toured pretty prominently in the late 70s, early 80s. And basically everything I like, it just comes from me going through my dad's record collection and stealing my dad's records, by the way.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
I love pretty much I think the thing that I love the most is 60s pop music, honestly. And that just came from, you know, my dad and listening to him and my uncle play when I was a kid. And when I was about 10, I got really, really, really into it to like a disgusting like point. Like it was a lot. And
It's pretty disgusting.
We have pictures.
Yeah, and Brandon and I actually played when I was 11 and Brandon was what, 13, 14? You'd have been 14, right?
Yeah, about 14.
We actually
yes, Elizabeth, I want some ice cream.
Nice, Elizabeth. Yeah, we played in a 60s tribute band around Detroit. And we dressed in the clothes and literally unapologetically thought we were living in 1967. And we did that for a while. And that's the first band that I actually ever played with.
John's that band for anybody watching.
Dude, I watched videos of that band again. That band was the shit. That band was
We were pretty good, I'm not gonna lie.
We were bad. But yeah, my influences go back to a lot of Motown, a lot of 60s pop. I worship Bob Seger like nobody's business. I worship Grand Funk Railroad, Humble Pie. That early 70s, late 60s, early 70s rock stuff that's where I get off. That's my thing.
Yeah.
Nice.
You go ahead, Brandon.
Well, it originally started with an Alien
I didn't even
Anthem
mention
CD.
Zeppelin because I know that's where you're going.
Yeah, but I have to tell you where it originally started, which was essentially Alien Ant Farm, Blink-182, Green Day, a lot of modern pop punk got me and my friends into a band before we even had instruments. And so I was the last one to the party, so I had to play bass. So fortunately, it was something that I actually learned to love a lot. And then my buddy from Detroit, that was my first band I was ever in, showed me the album How the West Was Won by Led Zeppelin. And my whole world changed. So needless to say, it's pretty much Zeppelin all the way, Sabbath, The Who, and then as I got older and started branching out, it was a lot of metal, like Pantera, that kind of stuff. And then when I moved to Nashville, it actually became a lot of 90s rock, grunge stuff. So one of my favorite bands is Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Stone Temple Pilots, that kind of stuff. A lot of driving bass lines, a lot of really amazing bass tones. Anything like that that's fairly heavy has a lot of meaning, and something that can make you make a stink face and groove along to pretty much every note of the song is anything that I'm a part of.
Hell yeah. I feel like
Brandon and I also have we both have Led Zeppelin tattoos, by the way, which I think is important to know.
Hell yes. I feel like, Brandon, you purged my playlist. I feel like you just went through my playlist and like everything you named, I'm like, here we go, let's go. Like I'm on it. Yeah, what are we doing? Bro.
Let's do it.
Come on, you know me.
Medalist.
Those are the essentials. Those are essentials. What we got?
Yeah.
What we got? You boys up here.
Jake?
You want me to go?
I mean, I'm happy to. I mean, the really amazing thing about my childhood is that my dad, like John mentioned, my dad was not in the band, but he had one of the most extensive record collections still that I've ever seen to this day, and there was always music playing in my house. So I mean, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones and the Zombies and Motown and all that stuff, which is really, really cool shit. Don't get me wrong. I would never we were talking about the Beatles for half of today, but the amazing stuff that I got kind of hip to was my dad played the Police and Steve Winwood, and he was playing Jimi Hendrix when I was 5 years old. And I was hearing stuff that stuck with me, and I would ask him to put it on. I would say, so Back in the High Life came out when I was a year old, and Steve Winwood, that was Steve Winwood to me. And then when I got a little bit older, my dad was like, hey man, you want to hear some Steve Winwood? And he played Traffic for me. And I said, what the fuck is this? And he was like, that's Steve Winwood and his band from the 60s. And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, check this out. He plays me Can't Find My Way Home, Blind Faith. And he's like, you know who else in that band? Eric Clapton. I was like, what? And then so this is all before I even started playing guitar. I just had this incredible kind of like backlog of music where I would hear shit as a young kid. And I guess that was all between the time I was born and when I turned 7. I turned 7 years old and Nevermind comes out. My dad brings home the Nevermind vinyl and goes, hey, let's listen to this together.
Bro.
I don't know what I was expecting, but he puts the needle down on the Nevermind vinyl and Smells Like Teen Spirit started. I thought my fucking house was going to explode, first of all. I need to do this. Whatever this is that's happening, I need to do that. So I was really, really sort of shifted from this like heavy songwritery, guitar forward music to this. I mean, Nirvana, even though they're super loud and grungy, that's pop rock. I mean, like that's like precision surgical pop rock. So very into that. And then Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, and Stone Temple Pilots and those guys. And then somebody around the time I was 10 was like, hey man, you got to check out Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I was like, who? And they said, just go to the record store, pick up Couldn't Stand the Weather, go home, and you'll understand what I'm talking about. And I went home and I listened to that record, and I basically like kicked my dad's door in like I was the fucking Kool-Aid man. And I was like, oh, yeah, you got to get me a guitar. And he was like, it's fucking 2 a.m. What do you mean? And I was like, I need a guitar. He was like, right now? I was like, soon. He was like, how about?
Oh yeah, get me a guitar.
So yeah, oh yeah. So the next day, I went and I got a guitar, and I went all the way back to the Jimi Hendrix stuff, to learning the horn lines and the vocal melodies on guitar of Stevie Wonder and Marvin Gaye and Sam Cooke and all that. And I was so moved by how much that early stuff super influenced the stuff that Brandon was talking about earlier and that John was mentioning, and that I don't mean to step on Jake, but like I know kind of where he's going to go with this. Like the shit that we love reaches out to you in a way that it's like, it doesn't have to be flashy. It has to be great. Yeah. And what makes something great isn't how bright and colorful and flashy it is. It's how much it grabs you. And the way that I got locked in was by listening to Stevie Ray play the guitar like it was his last day on earth every single time he picked up the instrument, and tracing that back to where I was introduced to music, and understanding how guys like Steve Winwood and Chris Cornell came up with and Mick Jagger and Keith, came up with the stuff that they did. And that was that was kind of the nexus of my education. And then I think, again, I would speak for all of us when I say that hasn't stopped. That goes to this day. I mean, like we're compilers, all of us. I mean, when we get together, I'm like, have you heard this? No. Have you heard this? No. Have you heard this? And now it's like where it used to be, you go into your the trunk of your fucking car and grab a record and be like, you better get this back to me, I'll fuck you up. Now you just send in a group chat and everybody gets to listen to what you love, and then you know each other a little bit better. And that's been my experience, and that's on you now.
By the way, Brian, I wasn't alive when Nevermind came out, so that's a really cool story.
And the story that I tell, then gets retold, I guess, in Sound City or whatever, but Butch Vig tells it. And this actually happened to me in my real life. My dad played the record from start to finish. We were in my living room. It ended after he flipped to the other side, and we were all like, can you start that again? Like, can we just do it?
Yes.
Dude, you were just doing that at the studio like 3 hours ago.
Yeah.
Brian's a machine. He'll be like, I want to do 18 takes in a row.
I still want to go.
Still want to go right now.
I can't believe we left.
Yeah. I mean, for me, it started, I didn't really have much going for me as a little kid. So like I just kind of, my dad would always push. Like in Detroit, it's impossible to not hear classic rock all the time in Detroit. It's impossible. That town is just soaked in it. So I think my first real experience that got me wanting to play was my dad played Stranglehold, and I was like, absolutely, that's the coolest thing I've ever heard. What the hell is that? And then he goes, oh, you like that? And then he started showing me Eddie Van Halen, and then the Hendrix came on, and that was really what did it. Once I heard the Hendrix stuff, I went full court press, had to get a guitar. 8 years old, really started going for it. And then later on, I got into the Stevie Ray Vaughan stuff, and I could not hear anything but blues music. And that's probably where I defer the most from everyone, I think, is that's where I can go deep into Delta stuff and crazy, dumb blues knowledge about, Blind Legs McGee, whatever that name is.
Here's a really fun thing for anybody watching it, and also for Diego, and also for you guys, because like I love these guys like they're my own flesh and blood, and it's like it's such a joy for me because they have their relationship that predates me, and I have individual relationships with everybody in the group, and the four of us have our core thing. And I learned so much from all of us being together about me. Like I have a pretty deep musical knowledge, I would say. And I'll get with John or Brandon or Jake, and they'll be like, "Well, have you heard this?" I'm like, "What the fuck are you even talking about?" Yeah, I've never heard of that. Yeah, I mean, I blame Brandon and John because like I didn't dissect really hardcore into the Zeppelin stuff until roughly the last decade. And John, one day I was playing around, like I always knew Peter Frampton. I always listened to Peter Frampton. I always had Frampton Comes Alive because you just like Wayne's World says, it just comes in with samples of Tide or whatever. John's like, you haven't heard this live Rockin' the Fillmore Humble Pie record? I'm like, no. And then I heard, I'm like, that's the greatest thing I've ever heard. Yep. And then I always was into Cream, always was into stuff like that. And I mean, it's really just everything. And like I told Brandon, like Brandon and I have had a small lately a fixation with the new metal thing. We just were like, this stuff was. We re-listened to it. We're like, we didn't give it a chance then, like as much. Yeah. We listened to it. I'm like, this is some awesome stuff. The same
like Limp Bizkit.
That came out when we were in high school. Like I went back and re-listened to like American Idiot or the My Chemical Romance record. I'm like, this was gold. This is gold.
But I was gonna say that to Brandon, the fucking awesome thing. So I was in a ska band when I was 13 years old. And I ended up in this ska band because I had played in my middle school talent show. I played Jimmy. I played Star Spangled Banner. And the guy who was spearheading this ska band was like, we need a guitar player. It's you. We have rehearsal tomorrow. Show up with your guitar and amp. Here's the address. And he didn't ask me. He told me I'm in this band now. So I went from like this pretty blues-oriented Zeppelin, Pink Floyd, Jimmy, Stevie Ray, Cream thing to like I was listening to a shitload of ska and punk and pop punk, and like I got super heavy into Jimmy World and My Chem and this and that. And I've seen Blink-182 like 20 times, like in the 90s.
I'm very jealous of that.
Hell yeah.
Very jealous of that.
There was this I thought for me like pretty strange transition. But the thing about a lot of those bands, like so they don't. I don't want to be a dick, but like they don't rely as heavily on musicianship as they rely on songwriting. And I wasn't ready for that, where it was like people would like shit on me for listening to this stuff. I'd be like, but have you heard these songs? Like you've heard what's on the radio, but like have you listened to these records? These are fucking great records. Like, absolutely fantastic records. And they are crafted and they actually have a beginning, a middle, and an end, not like a lot of stuff does now. Yeah. The way it was until at least I would say like 2003. I could even go 2005 with this, is that people put out records like, and I think Queens and Stone Age, I think Songs from the Deaf when I think of like one of the best rock. And you put a record on and that record starts and it goes and it tells you a thing and then it ends. And that's what happened with these Blink-182 records. That's what happened with Dookie, is that you got a full panoramic of who this band was at that time. And I think that's something that's missing from music now. I think that's something that we're really trying to do. And like the education that you get from having an open mind, from not being like, oh, I'm a rock dude or I'm a hip hop dude or I'm a blues dude. I'm being like, I'm a music guy. And if you tell me to listen to something, I'm going to fucking do it. And if I dig something from this thing that I never would have thought I liked, I can put that into my quiver and like make that something I can use for my stuff. And then maybe somebody who's got a really great ear can be like, holy shit, were you referencing so-and-so in this? Or maybe they miss it completely, but it still speaks to them and they don't know why. And that's the beauty of what we do.
I think we I'm sorry to interrupt. I got one more thing. But we had just recorded a bunch of our songs, and the next day I was just sharing why Peter Gabriel stuff with Brian. The next time,
yeah, like that's like there's no, and there's never a if you're a lifer, and I think probably I know that we all are. Many of the people watching understand. If you're a lifer, the best thing that can happen to you is that somebody says, check this out, and you've never heard it before. Yeah. Like if it's that, like when you're in high school, you're a snob and you're like, oh, if I didn't think of it, I don't like it.
Yep.
But now
that was Jake for sure.
Yeah. But show me something that's gonna fucking blow me away so I can start a whole new education, so I can be invigorated and rejuvenated and apply this to what it is that I'm committed to.
Yeah.
Well, and notice when we were talking, when I was talking about influences, I didn't mention the Beatles at all, because then if I did, it would just be me and Brian like hijacking this interview, and then my dad, who's watching, would try and call in, and like we would just.
I think the Beatles need to sort of. They're like.
That would just be one album. That would just be one album.
Right, Diego. How much time you got?
Bro, we got as long as you want. Like I told you, we could go. We could go.
What's up, chef?
It's crazy. It's crazy that you made that kind of the comment about when we're younger as musicians. And I've always said for 13 years I've done the radio thing. I don't have a musical bone in my body, but I love it. And I've never tried. I've never applied to play because it's one of those things. Like I know that this is where I belong on this side, right? Like I said at the top of the show, talking to the talent. I just bring the talent on stage. That's what I do best. You guys do the rest, you know. But when you're younger and as a musician, and it applied to me as a DJ, when I first got into the business, I was like new metal kid still to this day. I still wear the exact same Dickies and flannels and the flat bills, you know. I'm still 13-year-old me. But I'm like, I'm going to play Limp Bizkit every third song. I'm going to throw in some STP, Alice in Chains, and when I got to poop, November Rain's going to go on because that's a solid 11 minutes, you know? You know what I'm saying? Like, I can get back and forth to the studio in time. That's it, bro. But then over time, you just kind of mature, and then you just kind of like step back and think, all those fucking in my time, all those demos, I was like, yeah, cool, whatever, I'll listen to. Whatever. I heard you had a steel guitar. I ain't about that Southern rock shit, you know? And then as I get older, as we all get older, you start to appreciate shit more and you start to actually listen. And then you get a hold of that one album that maybe for the first time ever that just you're cleaning the house or you're working on your car or whatever. It started as background noise because you heard your one single and now it's your fucking favorite album from, you know, front to back. And that just kind of, yeah, it's crazy that you mentioned that because it's kind of the same thing that happened to me was younger. I only wanted one thing. Now I'm like, give it to me. What, you know, Conway Twitty just made a rock album. Probably is going to be amazing. Let's go, you know?
Yeah.
I think a lot of that comes down to, at least as a musician, you start to just really appreciate good songwriting. No matter the genre or no matter, you know, what the band is. I mean, you can look in like my Spotify playlist and it wouldn't be weird for you to hear a super obscure Jefferson Airplane song followed by Soundgarden, followed by the Bee Gees, like doing Saturday Night Fever. Like just good songwriting is good songwriting. And as you get older, you have a better understanding of that. And you're just like, well, I like this song and, you know, I like this too.
Yeah. And recently this past few years, you probably wouldn't guess it, but I'm a really big Miranda Lambert fan.
He really is.
You look
It's kind of scary.
All the time.
But, I mean, the musicianship is amazing. Probably my favorite band in country music. And it also helps that the lyrics that she writes are very relatable. And she has a really awesome attitude that's pretty much fuck you, anybody else. I'm going to write what I'm going to write. And it's going to be really aggressive, even for a country artist.
Well, I mean, I was that guy like years ago. I would scoff at certain country things because I was just not that guy. And I realized I'm not that guy. And then I tried to play those songs correctly. And like, you can scoff at Sweet Home Alabama all you want, but try writing it or playing it correctly.
Right.
It's not easy.
Right. Yeah, that's legit. It's crazy how shit comes full circle, and you just it's all about appreciation. You just start appreciating things more and more and more. So with that being said, for those of you just tuning in, thank you for tuning in. You are tuned in to the Asylum Inc. right here on Hellfire Radio. Special guest King Locomotive right out of Nashville, Tennessee, taking time out this evening. They're very busy schedule, literally in the studio right now. Took time out for me, little old me. So yeah, thank you guys once again. This is very awesome.
Thank you too, because I mean you've been a staple already in what we're doing and what we're trying to do, and I know we're going to see you again. So it means a lot.
Yeah, I appreciate it for sure. So what's the one essential? Like, and it's hard. And every time I ask this question to a band and everybody gives me the same answer, you know, they want more than one. And even myself, I always change sometimes. 9 times out of 10, I'm on the same album though. What's your one essential? Doesn't matter. Does not matter genre. Doesn't matter time, era, nothing. What's your one if you were stranded on the island for the rest of your life, but you had a record player? What's the one that you would bring?
Physical Graffiti, Zeppelin.
My man. Okay. That was quick. That's the quickest I've ever had that answer.
I have mine too. It's Thursday Night in San Francisco from Albert King. It is my favorite guitar record of all time.
Okay.
John, you got to go, man.
You want to go or you want me to go?
These two are going to be fighting.
Okay, guys, stop thinking about it.
Yeah, stalling.
Diego, it's got to be one.
You could ask me that question every single day, and I would probably give you a different answer. Today, I would say Live Bullet, Bob Seger, Silver Bullet Band.
Okay. Great. Okay.
I bet I'd ask you that tomorrow, and you'd give me the same answer.
No, I would tell you like Kiss. I would tell you Kiss Alive tomorrow. It was Kiss Alive yesterday. It's Live Bullet today.
I can do this. I can do this. It's not as hard as I thought it would be. So
that's what she said.
And I. But so the beauty of what we do and what you do, so I want to say this also. Like my brother, he does all my front of house. And he manages me back in New York, but ultimately he'll be our tour manager and whatever. He doesn't play music. He doesn't play an instrument either. But having an ear and having your heart open to be moved by something is like an essential part of like who we are and what we do and how listeners on the other side of the microphone come to know about shit that they come to love. So with that in mind, what I was originally going to say for my one essential, because it's kind of like an easy go-to, is the self-titled Lone Bellow record, and they're based here in Nashville as well. But really, if you were going to like strap me down and say you got to pick one, it would be Nirvana Unplugged in New York. And
so good.
And that was the thing where, like, even before I owned a guitar of my own, I would sneak into my cousin. My cousin lived with me when I was a child for a little while, and he had a guitar. And I would sneak into his room when he was out because he's like 13 years older than me. And I would grab his guitar and I would sit and I would watch the fucking VHS of Unplugged in New York. And I would rewind it back, and I would play shit on one string. Like even before I knew I wanted to play guitar, I was like, I need to make some sound the way that Kurt Cobain is making sound, and I need to express myself as selflessly but simultaneously aggressively as he's doing right now. And just while we're on that, In the Pines or Where'd You Sleep Last Night, that performance on that record is to me the definitive rock performance of anything ever.
Lead Belly song, funny enough.
Yeah, I mean,
is it really? I didn't know that.
I love when he talks about all those. I love when he talks about almost buying Lead Belly's guitar. Then they were like, "Oh, it's going to be like $500,000," and he's like, "Yeah, I guess not."
He walked into David Geffen's office and he was like, "No, we're not giving you $500,000."
Come on,
it's crazy that story. But then, if in retrospect, so many years after his death, somebody just bought his sweatshirt for $1 million. Was it not $1 million? That's
something like that. That was insane.
And his fucking Martin that he played on that gig, I think, was over $1 million.
I mean, just the craziness of that story that he told at that time. He was like, "Fuck that," no, and then turn around and the legend that he's grown into, right, over the years, whether by death or by performance. Crazy. But what can I get? I ask you boys, what can I get for Deftones' White Pony for the rest of my life?
Great.
Priceless. That's my go-to. That's gonna for always be my go. Anything Deftones. I'm
It's a good one.
fan. Yep. So we're gonna get into it right now. It's a little game I like to play. It's called This or That. It's just rapid fire questions. I got two choices. You guys pick which one, and you guys stick with it. No regrets. Ready? All right. Here we go, and we'll go round table. So, would you rather be on the beach for the weekend or in the mountains?
Mountains for me.
Mountains.
Mountains.
Mountains all around.
Mountain all around. Okay. All right.
Wow, Brian, I'm shocked.
That one threw me off. Yeah, I thought I'd get a beach in there somewhere. I'm a beach guy. Yeah, I need the beach. I'm afraid of snakes and insects. I'm a city boy. Yeah, get my ass out of the woods.
I'm afraid of jellyfish.
Oh,
That's the thing I'm afraid of.
Ocean scares.
that's warranted, bro. They'll get you real quick. Coffee or tea?
Coffee.
Coffee.
There we are. Yeah. Outdoor venue, big, just open outdoor, or little dive bar? Where would you
Dive
rather
bar.
play?
Wait,
Dive bar.
would you rather play?
Where would you rather play?
Dive bar.
Dive bar. Yeah.
Dive bar.
Shit sounds good inside, no matter
Yeah.
what.
What would you rather attend?
Dive bar.
Dive bar.
Bro,
I mean, we all, like the three of us, Jake, Brand, and I, we grew up playing dive bars, around Detroit. Like that's just kind of that's our bread and butter right there. That's where we made our bones.
I mean, that's my dream, is to like actually have a hit and have a somewhat big modicum of success and go still play a dive bar.
Hell yeah.
That would be the most fun thing ever.
No, that's what we're going to do.
yeah.
We're going to do that in a couple weeks, man. Don't worry about it.
Any kind of place where my mom doesn't have to call ahead and reserve a table.
Yeah. Good.
Right. It's crazy because Metallica does that shit. Metallica will just they'll be home for whatever reason, off a tour or whatever. And it's almost like not monthly, but maybe every 3 months, it'll just pop up. Metallica walks into Blobbity Blue, record store, plays 5 songs and bounces. Like nobody knows they're there. You know what I'm saying? Like, so yeah, it's just that whole.
Yeah, I think that's fucking awesome too, because it's also it's the band showing you like, hey, they didn't forget where they came from. They know their roots.
Exactly. All right.
No, I read that when Tedeschi Trucks plays their hometown, like in Jacksonville, there's 12 people in that band. Apparently, they'll like finish their theater gig or whatever, and then they'll be like, all right, see y'all later, and they'll just go out, and each of them will find some place where they know a buddy from high school is playing, and they'll all sit in, and they end up like
Awesome.
kind of rotating around the strip in Jacksonville. Like, I love that.
Dave Grohl does that shit every
All the
time
time.
they're in Nashville, bro. He shows up somewhere else and plays another 3.5 hours on his throne or not. Yeah. Let's see. Tequila or whiskey?
Whiskey.
I don't know. I think I'd have to go tequila in this one.
There we go. I got one. I finally got one. Where
But,
I'm with
but
you,
it
bro.
also depends on if I'm mixing it, because then this is what I mix it with. And then it would have to be whiskey.
Right? Isn't that the folklore of Mountain Dew here in the South?
Oh,
I think
yeah.
Oh, that's a true
Mountain Dew
story.
was made to mix with the whiskey or something.
And it's
like that.
amazing.
It was like a moonshine. They made it mix with moonshine, I think.
Yeah. And it's fucking amazing.
I've never had it. I may have to try it one night. I have to try
Let's
it.
do it tomorrow, dude. You can have some.
Maybe I'll bring one to Bowie's on the 5th.
I'm gonna hold you to it. Let's do it. Drinks. We have to hit it up. And then one
Done.
extra one I added too, just on the fly, because we kind of talked about it for 2 seconds. Nirvana unplugged or Alice in Chains unplugged.
Why'd you have to do that to me?
Yup, right? As they were talking, I was like, bro, the 2 most iconic performances of all time.
I'm gonna go Alice in Chains on that one for me personally.
I mean, Alice in Chains is my favorite 90s band. I'm probably going to have to go Alice in Chains, especially just for the fact that Wayne was just he was so good and everything was so effortless, yet he was like on that death path.
That was it.
Like
Yeah,
he was like there.
he was there. He was there.
That version of Nutshell on there is absolutely ridiculous.
Dude,
Haunting.
Down in a Hole is the one that made me answer like that.
I just got chills. You said it, and I've got chills now. Yeah, that's. Yes.
I'm
That's
happy.
when they opened the show. You opened the show with fucking Nutshell? You kidding me?
Yeah.
Brian, what say you?
It's definitely Nirvana. I mean, like I wore that tape out. I mean the way that and I mean I guess it might have some of the, I don't remember what year the Alice in Chains one was. I know it was they were similar, like they were probably within a couple of years of each other. But the way that Nirvana came into my life and then went out of my life, and not to say they're not, but I mean, like, it was like there was this window for me of Nirvana being the biggest thing that ever happened. And as that record came about, I didn't get it. Like, I didn't understand. First of all, I didn't know that Unplugged in New York was like a thing that they did with other bands. I thought Nirvana was the only one who did it.
I thought so too, honestly.
And then it was just sort of like, oh, not only is this thing coming out, but also Kurt Cobain's dead and there's no more Nirvana.
Right.
So I was just like, holy shit. So it started for me in my living room with my dad hearing Nevermind on vinyl and Smells Like Teen Spirit, almost like shaking the windows in my house. And it goes out with Kurt like basically blowing his vocal cords out and like telling the world to their face that he's done.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing will ever top that for me.
How about while we're on the Unplugged thing, how about fucking Korn Unplugged?
No.
That album is amazing,
bro.
Holy crap!
Yeah,
I'm gonna have to say Kiss Unplugged. I know you asked Alice in Chains or Nirvana. Kiss Unplugged.
Yeah. Yep. That's for me. It's so hard, but like with the Nirvana thing, like I love Nirvana, but I fell out of love with Nirvana after Kurt passed. Nirvana is going to go down in history as the ones that started it and finished it. They finished it as well at grunge era. It started and ended with Nirvana. But something about that Alice in Chains performance, I think it is the haunting thing of Lane was done for all intents and purposes. Just the crowd they had there, that Metallica was in attendance that night. You know, just there were so many things that when Lane fucked up a song on the fly, then they had to restart it, you know?
Yeah.
And then that performance, you come out with Nutshell, and that performance of Nutshell, people don't even realize that the studio version of that exists. You know what I'm saying? Like that made people, when you hear the studio version of Nutshell, you're like, what is this bullshit? Like, I want to hear, you know what I'm saying? Like, still a great song, but iconic, both of them. If I had to choose, I don't really think I could, to be honest with you, but Alice in Chains by a small margin. Such a small margin.
You. I respect it.
I'm only answering that because down in a hole performance.
I respect
that's
it.
the only reason.
The crowd when Lane finally walks onto the stage,
bro.
I'm like,
it's like watching a
crap. That was their first show in how long?
That was their first show.
Yeah, even if you're not watching it on video, you can hear it just listening to the record.
Yeah,
like,
that was their first show in like some odd years.
Yeah.
And it's just insane listening to the story, especially because I really read into Lane's death. And you know, I read a thing from I think it was a Jerry Cantrell interview, just like talking about everything that went on, and especially when he went to Lane's apartment and it was just completely trashed. Yep. Like his teeth were rotten out, you know, he had just junk everywhere. And that's one of those stories I'm like, man, that's something I really hope I never have to experience in life, is something like that.
Right. And that's, I've actually got to talk, like I interviewed Mike Inez from Alice in Chains, and he brought Jerry with him. And that was like my first big interview. I was like 25, wet behind the ears, thought I knew it all. And I was like, yeah, Mike Inez, you know, he's Alice in Chains, but he's not Jerry, right? And then Jerry pops on the phone too. And he actually gets into that a little bit too. So it's like, yeah, those stories, something about Jerry telling them, it's haunting.
It hits so much harder than just hearing it from like some dude writing about it in Seattle that's just heard around the block what actually happened. Or read news stories.
Doesn't he just seem like the nicest guy too?
Bro,
like just somebody you just want to sit down with and have a beer.
Jerry?
Yeah.
He's a talker. Like he will go. He will go until you tell him I'm out of time or I got to go. And then still I'll stay on the line. You know, like he's a cool guy, cool cat. That was definitely a good time for me, of course. But so let's stay in the grunge thing for just a hot second, because it's something I bring up every now and again as well, and it gets people going, and sometimes people agree with me. what can I get for Pearl Jam doesn't get the credit for killing grunge like they should. People hold Pearl Jam, in my opinion, this is my opinion, okay? Pearl Jam could have carried that torch for years, but Eddie didn't like to perform. He didn't like crowds. He didn't want to be a rock star. And when Kurt died and then Lane passed and then everything just went away, Pearl Jam could have stand at the top of the mountain and they could have owned the world. And they still do in you know, in a lot of there's still a lot of Pearl Jam fans out there.
I have my theory about this, and I apply it to Coldplay and U2 and things like that of why people hate certain bands.
Sure.
I'm like, you don't hate Pearl Jam, you hate Eddie Vedder, which I totally get. It's like you don't hate Coldplay, you hate Chris Martin. You don't hate U2, you hate Bono. And it's like, and I think that the first Pearl Jam record is absolutely unstoppable.
Oh, Tennessee.
There's the first two albums are practically unstoppable.
I will say, so I'll come in on this for a real quick second. So 10 is like that's like a bull in a china shop. Versus is like some of the rest of 10 that they didn't put on it, and then this Eddie Vedder thing, because 10 came out of Mother Love Bone and those songs that Soul Bastard and Jeff Ament had written together, and they got Eddie to sing. Then Eddie got writing, and like you can hear that, like you know that's. And I have to say that when we're talking about that era, that for me, Chris Cornell is like that's my guy, and Soundgarden somehow, even with being probably of Pearl Jam, Alice in Chains, Nirvana, and Soundgarden's probably the biggest band, and they were around for the longest.
Yep.
And they get mentioned the least.
Exactly.
And that's partially because they weren't actually a grunge band. They were Soundgarden. And there's nothing else. They were from Seattle, but they weren't grunge in the same way. Like they predated it, and then they followed it up. And I don't know that I think it would have been nice from like a fan perspective if Pearl Jam had like kept the torch going, but like that's not what they were. They weren't like, first of all,
that's what I was gonna say. I don't necessarily think of Pearl Jam as a grunge band per se.
And Kurt
Cobain,
yeah, I'd consider Bush a grunge band.
I do as well.
And that first album, fucking 16 Son, holy crap!
Yes.
Everything Zen. Oh,
yeah.
What? How the fuck do you get that guitar tone?
Wait,
besides the obvious, you know, a Mesa and a tremolo verb, or a Mesa tremolo verb.
I have to say, I have to run. I'll be right back.
I'll be
I'm
here.
so sorry. Yeah.
Can we
Hold down the
get
fort real quick.
an Asylum Inc. voter poll about whether or not you want to hear King Locomotive do Everything Zen? Because I know that Brendan wants to.
As the creator of Asylum Inc., I say I trump everybody's vote, and I say 1,000%. 1,000 votes. Yes.
You got it.
All right, so
Follow too. That fucking song is awesome.
Bro, that would be awesome. So yeah, the whole grunge era, like that's another one you just don't let go. Like new metal and grunge for me, those are the two that I can't let go. You know,
the 90s are so interesting too because you had so many different things happening and everything was good. You know, in the 80s, you know, it was just mostly hair metal, and then, you know, grunge came in and killed that. But in the 90s, I mean, you did have Nirvana, you did have Soundgarden, you had Alice in Chains. Then you had my personal favorite band of the 90s, Gin Blossoms, writing perfect pop songs.
Yep.
And it's all good. Like, they're all good rock bands.
Yep. That's if you think back, like it, but then it breaks up into like, it's like we're in school, right? Nerds don't talk to the jocks. Goth kids don't talk to nobody. And teachers picked on. You know what I'm saying? So that's the way music was in the 90s. You had your grunge kids that may or may not have turned into new metal kids, or they went the pop punk route. But you had in the 90s, you had still Alice in Chains, still Nirvana. Then you had on the come up Green Day, right? Just a little Bay Area band playing. Literally, my first time I ever seen Green Day was my last day of summer school for the 7th grade. I had to do summer school to get through the 7th grade. I colored outside the lines a few times. And they played in like the pavilion of this middle school that I went to, or excuse me, this high school that I went to summer school at. I mean, that was just Green Day, you know. You still had Metallica, hella relevant at that time, hella relevant. Motley Crue was still trying to hang on. Guns N' Roses was just starting to break apart. Then you had the kids on the come up that nobody gave any two shits about because they were too different. Korn, right? Korn
Well,
sprung the
Korn.
Deftones. Then you had POD. I mean, yeah, Jen Blossoms, Bush, everywhere.
Jeff Buckley,
Jeff
and at
Buckley.
that time,
maybe the best record that came out of the '90s. Grace by Jeff Buckley.
Jellyfish was up there, Belly Button, an awesome record too.
Rage came out, like the title Rage record was the same week as Blood Sugar Sex Magic, was the same week as fucking Black Album and Bad Motorfinger. We only like barely touched Metallica. Like Metallica.
Yeah. So it's like when you're younger, and John, maybe you can't, if you weren't born for Nevermind, then maybe you're out of this subject for a second.
I am the youngest one here. That's for sure.
But at that time, you don't appreciate it, right? It goes back to the appreciation aspect. You pull back now, and I flip through albums, and I'm like, because I still have some CD albums. Yes, I do. I'm like, Jesus Christ, where do I start? Or I want to just do a quick show, a solo show that I'm going to talk about 90s music. And I'm like, never mind. There's too much to talk about. I'm just going to refer back to, Deftones or Korn, because that's just, it's just too much. It's a sensory overload. So much good.
Did anyone get System of a Down at all?
Would you call them a age group?
Yeah, I mean, I would call them my favorite. I guess they were of the new metal era. My favorite.
Who'd you say?
They're like vaudeville.
They're insane.
Metal.
They're insane.
Changed music. Like it changed the way that people thought about what you could do as a popular artist. That must have sold like 20 million records.
I love how Rick Rubin describes them. He just goes like, he said, I saw them at the Viper Room and I just laughed at the show. And not because it was stupid, it's just because it was so extreme.
What the fuck is going on here? The first time I heard, which is before Toxicity, I don't even remember. What was the name of that record?
Was it so? It's Toxicity. Then was it still this album before or after? I think it was before.
I think it was before that. Like
what it was before.
First time I heard Sugar, I was scared to death.
Was it Spiders? Was that the album?
Honestly, I
don't know.
I can't remember now.
Still the Mesmerite hypnotized.
Well, that's.
But yes, and System doesn't get any credit because they are political, and people for whatever reason yell at them a little harder about being political than they do Rage. They glorify Rage, right?
Yeah,
and they chastise System. So it's like, and I don't get into the politics, but just one of those things. It's just kind of like, what the fuck? They're both amazing. System
is super specific politically. Like they really are like bringers of. They're really fighting for their home country kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Most of the time.
I mean, like that's what they're all about.
I'm not sure I can fully comment on that.
Yeah. Who are we to tell an art? I mean, it's their art.
Sugar was on their self-titled record in 1998.
That's it. It was self-titled. Yep. Yeah. Good looking out on that one. So
I'm not crazy about System, but I will say Toxicity is one of the most fucking frustrating songs I've ever had to play on drums.
You're welcome.
You're
very welcome.
It's tough.
I could imagine. So what's your opinion on, we'll just go through all of it. Shit, I got time. You guys got time?
We got time.
Yeah, we got time.
I probably got a dip, but yeah, I probably got a couple minutes.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Brandon has two beautiful children.
I feel that. Yeah, I got 3 Rugrats of my own that run around. The 3 toddlers all at the same time. So that's why I'm
crap, how do you do it?
Caffeine and a lot of YouTube for them and puzzles. So yeah, they terrorize me. Yeah, they terrorize me. But so new metal. What's the opinion? Is Slipknot new metal?
I put them in the category, but I'd consider them more metal, just straight up than new metal.
I wouldn't say that.
I'd consider them NEW new metal.
Okay, I like that take. I've never heard that before, but I like that take a lot. And then the other one I throw out there, and gets me all the hatred, and then I have to explain myself. But Linkin Park.
I love Linkin Park. That's definitely new metal. I feel like anything that has rap in it is new metal.
Anything after Meteora though?
I mean, I didn't get into much after Meteora. I got into Minutes to Midnight. Yeah. I think that was the last album I really got into, but I loved, I just bought the collector's edition of Hybrid Theory.
Oh, yeah.
I loved Reanimation when it came out.
Yep.
And Meteora, that literally you turn that CD on and it's just a mood.
Yep.
Like
Someone talk about Smokey Robinson, please.
Got it.
Well, I will say this about Linkin Park. You know, what was it? One Step Closer? Is that, or whatever they call that? That was the single, right?
No, it was Crawling.
No, Crawling blew my doors off, and I loved that. And I would play that with my bands in middle school or high school, or like ninth grade, whatever it was. And I'm not as familiar with the discography as evidently you guys are, but they were so big that they just kept coming out with stuff. And one thing I could say about them is that I didn't have a genre for them in my head, but they were always so much who they were.
Yeah.
You know, like, so that's why I'm like, I don't know if they have a genre. Like, I feel like they're a pop band. They were on pop radio in New York for the whole time I was in my teens, and like that. And they had this, like, frankly, if you sell out Madison Square Garden, you're a pop band. I mean, like, no matter what kind of shit you're playing, like by the time you got 20,000 people to buy tickets, that's where you're at.
What was that saying when they were talking about when grunge came out? I forgot what the story is when they said, well, you know, alternative radio, or everybody goes, alternative to what?
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
Alternative rock is the most offensive fucking term in the world.
Yeah. Yep. That's,
or I mean, that's REM, and that's why I think it's offensive. So.
I'm with you, and that's why. And a lot of people are down on me because they're like, "Well, you just look at new metal," because I love Limp Bizkit, right? So I'm a huge Limp Bizkit fan. It's a blessing and a curse that I may or may not look like their lead singer. No comment there.
I wasn't gonna say anything, but I definitely was thinking it.
Bro, for 22 years, ever since $3 bills come out, Fred Durst and me have been. One day we'll get that interview, but until then, yeah, so it's like Linkin Park. I agree. I mean, I've never heard anybody like kind of take the words out of my mouth. They're not new metal because they're everything.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so yeah, I don't look at them as a new metal band. I think they're in that era. I definitely think they're there, but I also think they're in 2010. I think they're relevant in 2021. You know, like it's anything, everything. Before we dip out of here, you guys just promote the shit out of everything you got going on. Where can we find any of your tunes? Give us all your socials. Just lay it out right now.
We are on all your streaming platforms: Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, YouTube. We have actually a brand new single that just came out yesterday.
Oh, it was yesterday.
It was yesterday.
Well, today.
Yesterday. It's called Into the Light, and we're going to have another one next month. And we will be playing at Bowie's on the 5th with Beyond Here in Forts Lake Vanna. And we will be playing Sunday, February 7th at Bus Call at Tin Roof down on Broadway. I don't know the time slot yet. And then at Kimbro's, we are with Fresh Squeeze at 7 p.m.
And we are at King Locomotive Music on Instagram and Facebook and King Locomotive
and
on
Spotify.
YouTube. What is it?
It's King Locomotive.
It's King Locomotive, yeah. And we were in the studio today. We got 4.5 new fucking bangers coming, one a month for the duration of the rest of y'all's lives. Thanks.
Nice. That's awesome. And one thing before I get in here, for everybody that's asking, yes, they're coming. I promise you they're coming. By popular demand, this damn shirt and stickers and hoodies, they're coming. So all you got to do is hit up hellfire.com, go to the merch tent, and it'll be up soon. So they made me into a cartoon.
Also, same for making me spend money.
And
you get a friend discount.
if you bring one of those down to Bowie's on the 5th, I'll wear it while we play.
Yeah.
Bro.
And only that.
It's coming this month, next month too.
I appreciate it. Fellas, it's been awesome. You are welcome back anytime. I'm sure we'll do this again down the road. I cannot wait till February 5th. Come out to Bowie's on 3rd and Church right there in Nashville, Tennessee. I'll be hosting all the festivities. It's going to be a great fucking show, and these guys are closing it. For one more time for everybody, this was King Locomotive. I am Diego. You are watching the Asylum Inc. on Hellfire Radio. Go to the website, hellfireradio.com. Like, share, subscribe on our Facebook page. We got Instagram, too. We're on every bit of social that you can get your hands on. We're there. Thank you guys once again, and I'll see you soon.
Can I give you one shout out real quick before we go?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks to Brother Dusty and the Reveal for putting out the good word for us as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
100,000. That guy's solid right there. Solid right there.
Oh, there's the best dogs on earth right here. I'm sorry.
You guys stick around after I kick out of here. I'll talk to you in a second.
Thank you.
Are you still here? It's over. The show's done. Go like, share, subscribe, Hellfire Radio. Also, you can find us on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. Like, share, subscribe. Now go on. The show's done. Leave me be. I need coffee.